Welcome to Coruzant Technologies, home of the Digital Executive Podcast. Welcome to the Digital Executive. Today's guest is Dmitry Shapiro. Dmitry Shapiro is an American entrepreneur. He is the founder and CEO of MindStudio. MindStudio allows users to easily launch AI applications without any coding knowledge required. Shapiro was previously founder and CEO of Koji, an app store of social mini apps that are added to various links in bios. Koji was acquired by Linktree in 2023. He also created the video sharing site Veoh in 2005. Shapiro served as the CTO at MySpace before moving on to Google, where he took up the role of group product manager. Originally from Russia, Shapiro moved to the US at 9 years old, where he found his passion in coding. Well, good afternoon, Dmitry. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Really excited to see you.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. Dmitry, I'm going to jump right into our first question here. Could you start by sharing maybe what inspired you to found MindStudio and how it aims to transform operations across every enterprise in every industry?
Yeah, look, I'm a techie. I've been building products since 1984 when I was in high school, and I started writing code when I was 14. And so I periodically get inspired by the opportunities to build things, and I get inspired for kind of for different reasons. This is my third venture-backed company as a founder that I've built. Another one was a competitor to YouTube called Veoh. I was a major competitor. I raised $70 million there, did that for 5 years. Before that, I built a venture-backed cybersecurity company called Iconic Systems, raised $34 million for that. And then I was at MySpace as chief technology officer, MySpace Music, and at Google for 4 years on the product side. So I'm a product/engineering guy, loves to build things. What inspired us to build MindStudio was really the release of ChatGPT and kind of this new era of sort of consumer and business accessible models, AI models that have amazing capabilities, these generative AI models. And it became very clear to Sean Phelan, my co-founder, and I, shortly after the release of ChatGPT, that while the models are extraordinarily powerful, people's ability to actually get those models to do anything meaningful is sort of prohibited by the interface to the model being sort of this command line interface, being chat, right? Being conversational. And while that's amazing that you can talk to the model, and type with your fingers, in order to get these models to do a lot of things that they can do that you might want them to do requires you to type too many words. And that there really needs to be a better interface to models. That was sort of one realization. Another realization was that GPT, ChatGPT wasn't going to be the only game in town. OpenAI was going to have competitors, and they came much faster than we expected that they would, especially now with the open source sort of part of this landscape. And it was going to be important to have a model agnostic abstraction layer that would abstract all of this innovation in the models and then allow, businesses, organizations, people to build applications on top of all of this new intelligence, on top of this intelligence layer. So we often refer to MindStudio as the application layer of AI, sitting on top of the intelligence layer, which is sitting on top of like this infrastructure layer where you've got hardware, net, compute, et cetera. So it was just very clear that there was going to be a need for this, and we had a vision for how to do it, and here we are.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that helps our audience, how you broke that down and explaining the need for an interface and what layer you're at for interfacing with these LLMs, right? So I appreciate the share. And Dmitry, MindStudio is positioned uniquely at the intersection of AI and user accessibility. What challenges did you face in making advanced technology approachable for the average enterprise employee, and how did you overcome them?
A big question. I think the important thing for people to understand is that while you can tell, let's say, a large language model to do something, and it does it, right? Like, write me a poem, and it writes you a poem, and you say, oh my God, that's incredible. Look, these things are brilliant, and they can write poems. Or write me an article, or like solve this problem, or, ask me a bunch of questions and then try to figure out what ails me, basically diagnose me. Like there's a lot of amazing things that sort of conversationally you can do with these models. Again, the real power of them comes when you use them at the right time for the right things. And so, again, it was clear to us that for there to be many sort of use cases, we're focused on enterprise. So let's say an enterprise. And when I use the word enterprise, I don't actually mean large companies. I mean like any kind of an organization. It could be a one-person organization. It's like any kind of an endeavor that is trying to get something done, that like cares about productivity and cares about efficiency and cares about output and quality and things like that. But there are also like sort of countless consumer applications too. And many people use MindStudio to build those also, but we're kind of not focused. So when I say enterprise, I just mean any organization. That there are sort of countless things that generative models can be used for inside of enterprise, whether they're language models or image or video or code, like not just language model, but these, let's call them generative AI. What really needs to happen is the ability for business users to be able to articulate what it is that they want to happen and have sort of AI do that. And the right way to do it is not to just sort of give an AI a giant prompt of instructions. A better way to do it is to create basically a multi-step workflow that says you start here, then you do this, and then you end here. And this is the process that I want you to do for me, AI model. And so we, prior to this, built another platform called Koji, K-O-J-I, that allowed people to basically sort of connect things together really easily. And before that, another platform called MySpace. And so we've built these kinds of platforms before that allowed people to have a canvas, sort of a digital canvas, onto which they could place components and connect those components together and configure them in order to be able to do stuff. So we kind of already had that in the bag of like how that could be done. This is a completely new code base, but what kind of the learnings were there already. And so we used those learnings to, again, very quickly sort of create the first version of MindStudio. And it's like in last summer and launched it. And people very quickly understood how to use this type of a canvas of these, components that you configured. And then since then, we've obviously expanded the capabilities dramatically and sort of expanded all across the board of like what you can do with MyStudio.
Thank you. I appreciate sharing some of your iterations, where you started and some of the challenges you faced. Certainly appreciate that. And Dmitry, what mistakes are you seeing in regard to enterprise adoption of AI today?
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion, rightfully so. It's a completely new thing that's been thrown at all of us, over the last year and a half. Of like, what is AI and what do you do with it as an enterprise, right? And a year ago, if you would have asked this question of everyone, they would say, well, duh, you go to ChatGPT and you create an account and you sort of practice this art of prompt engineering and you maintain sort of like these long lists of prompts in a PDF. And then, you collect them. You might even buy some from some people on LinkedIn that sell 5,000 prompts in a PDF and you can just buy it from them. And then you can just find the right prompt and copy and paste it. And voila, that's how you do AI as an enterprise. And that sort of set the stage for people. And a lot of enterprises are still sort of seeing the world in that way. For early adopters in enterprise of that type of an approach, they very quickly realize that does not lead to massive gains in productivity. In fact, oftentimes it leads to loss of productivity. And the primary reason for that is now employees, instead of doing the work, are sort of nudging AI to try to do the work for them. And that process of nudging AI by typing things to it, typing commands to it, while on one hand, it's amazing that you can do that, keep nudging it to do work, that's certainly not very productive and not very efficient. And oftentimes you actually don't get the best quality work out. And so you sort of spent a bunch of time doing the wrong thing and you didn't get the output that you wanted anyway, and you sort of settled for it. And so that's not a good approach to really leverage the power of AI in there. Then companies started sort of taking another approach of like when a whole bunch of these sort of vertical SaaS solutions popped up, Jasper, Copy, Writer, and then there's like There's AI SaaS for sales and marketing and operations and all that. And so some enterprises, once they sort of tried the give everybody direct access to a model and see how that works, and that didn't work, they said, oh, okay, that makes sense. The right way to do it is just to cobble together this like new set of SaaS solutions that we can train our people to use. And here we go. We've transformed our enterprise with modern tools. But that too is not the best approach, because while that is a better approach than the first one, this approach has other limitations, that you've got to cobble together all these tools. You got to train your people. You got to manage them. And people are then sort of copying from one tool to another, and they're sort of orchestrating this manually. Okay. So MindStudio takes a radically different approach to this and sort of looks at the world in this way, that the right way for enterprises to do AI is to understand what AI can do and what AI can't do. And that's a matter of education. And so we provide some simple YouTube tutorials that explain to people how generally this stuff. And once you got that, you can then sort of look at your enterprise holistically and clearly see that there are some things perhaps in your enterprise that can be completely automated, and that you yourself can now build these applications, these automations that do that. And so you go ahead and build those rapidly, check. Then you realize there's some things that can be partially automated, and you can do those partial automated. For things that still require humans, the work that humans have to do now is different, because you've automated a bunch of things, or partially automated a bunch of things. And so now you can look at what humans have to do and say, can I give them better applications that fit them more like a glove to do those things better? So custom business apps. And you can use MindStudio to create these AI-powered custom business applications for each job function or for each employee. You can sort of update your business application tech stack yourself using MindStudio. And then sort of finally, for all things that still sort of come up like ad hoc, because employees need the ability periodically to use intelligence in a conversational way, instead of just letting them use ChatGPT, enterprises can give them now sort of custom built, enterprise grade, specialized assistants for each job function that knows about the enterprise, has access to enterprise data, is integrated with enterprise's other applications, can be logged, can be archived, can enforce policies. And so you sort of get a complete solution of taking an enterprise and making it an AI-enabled enterprise. And so we now have over 50,000 of these AIs that have been built and deployed across, giant enterprises, government agencies, thousands of SMBs, et cetera. Overwhelmingly, that's completely self-service. One, we don't have any salespeople at all, zero. Enterprises show up, learn about it, and sign up for an account, start building. There are now over 100, IT integrators and various types of agencies that have showed up and have said, hey, our enterprises, our clients are asking us to use MindStudio to build things for them. And so can we partner with you? So we just launched a partner program, an agency partner program. There's a lot of experimentation going on right now. I would call them mistakes. I think like experimentation of enterprises trying to figure out what to do. And we sit at this point where by the time they come to us, they've tried a bunch of things, realized that those weren't sort of the things that paid off in a big way. And in our reporting that this actually works, dramatically better.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you're really helping the user adoption is the way I see it. The way you explain things while people are pushing the envelope as far as using the large language models, you're actually a partner for all these people, or like you said, any enterprise adoption at any level across an organization, big or small. So I appreciate that. I really do, Dmitry. Dmitry, last question of the day. Looking towards the future, what emerging trends in AI and technology are you most excited about? And how does MindStudio plan to leverage these trends in its offerings?
So Mind sits on top of all of this innovation in like all of these trends, right? As models get better, MindStudio allows enterprises to leverage those models. We're completely model agnostic. You can connect MindStudio to any model or models that you use. A bunch of larger enterprises have their own models that they're running. They run inference in a private cloud or on-premise, et cetera. You can connect to those. And, we support sort of all the public ones, open source, et cetera. As innovation happens, MindStudio, because of, again, what it does, that it's this abstraction layer between what the businesses need their applications, and this intelligence layer sort of benefits from it. What am I excited about the most? Yeah, that's a tough one. One, things are evolving so quickly that every day, even if this is all you do full time, you can't keep up with all the innovation. I think the general path is straightforward, multimodality. And so, what we saw, for example, with GPT-4o yesterday, right? And so you got, and by the way, multimodality is going to come to many, many models. I'm super excited about small models becoming much more useful in enterprises. Large models aren't the solution for all use case. In fact, a use case, meaning some process that needs to be automated or some business tool that needs to be created for the enterprise, using just large models to facilitate that is inefficient and, has a bunch of latency and things like that. And it's much better. And we see this already happening in these 50,000 AIs, where enterprises have realized that using actually smaller models and sort of chaining a bunch of them together in these multi-step workflows intelligently, you get better performance, you get lower cost, you get an easier way to customize them and train them and keep them updated in all of that. And so while sort of watching the amazing, innovation in these, giant models, I think the real heavy lifting in enterprises is not going to be done by the large models. It's mostly going to be done by smaller models that are orchestrated in the right way inside the enterprises. That becomes powerful. I think the sort of societal change is the other thing that arguably becomes kind of the most important part of all of this is like, okay, great. You can do a bunch of things with efficiencies in enterprises, right? And that's where we're focused, right, on that. But AI is going to dramatically change the way we communicate with one another. Today we meet somebody new in business or somebody new out in a bar, right? And we start a conversation, and that becomes the beginning of a dialogue and of us getting to know one another. And that moves pretty slowly because conversation is fairly slow. But what if we can sort of show up and bump our phones, and instantly an AI can look at our sort of personal digital wallet of information, mine and yours, and instantly say, okay, let me print out for you all the things you don't need to talk about because you already completely agree on all of these things. And I can see, oh, wow, we've got all these things in common. And now we can instantly jump into the deep end of conversation. That's amazing. And that's going to transform relationships. And when you take that to teams, that becomes extraordinarily powerful. Building teams is the hardest part about building a company. Keeping teams aligned, because things are constantly changing, is a never-ending, struggle. And everybody's failing at it, no matter what. Even the best teams are extraordinarily poor in being able to stay aligned, right? They're very fuzzy. But AI can actually keep us all aligned by being able to do this same thing that I was just describing, but at a team level, to be able to observe the operations of teams and realize that while people say that they are aligned, they are not exactly behaving as if they're aligned. And sort of this detection of human miscommunication is an extraordinarily valuable thing. We see that already a bunch in enterprises that are using MindStudio to build, automations and assistance inside of sales processes, for example. Salespeople tend to, sales is this again, multi-step process where you've got to build rapport, you've got to communicate value propositions, and you've got to understand objections and all of these things. And, great salespeople are radically better than, average salespeople. Why? Because, there's stuff there that matters that can be changed. Well, AI now, first of all, everybody's transcribing their conversations. Like you and I just turned off my Firefly's assistant before we started that. But that thing shows up in all the conversations. And typically those things just go into some bucket, and maybe someday compliance is going to look at that. That's cool. But now what you can do is you can build AIs really easily that are constantly looking at salespeople's communications with prospects, sort of through the lens of, let me see what's happening between these people communicating, and let me see where they're miscommunicating. See, the salesperson thinks the prospect is ready to buy, but the AI knows the prospect isn't ready to buy because the prospect has not asked any of the questions they would ask in order to understand, what that they're ready to buy. So the AI can proactively, help the salesperson understand the situation, automatically create follow-up collaterals, for example, to proactively teach the prospect of things. And so that becomes, when human to human communication becomes dramatically more efficient and nuanced, well, wow, kind of everything changes beyond that. By the way, I also think that's critically important for the stability of our world. We live today in a society that's extraordinarily fractured, is the term people like to use. Why is it fractured? Because we're not able to communicate with one another. Why? Because we are all very busy and we have very different perspectives now because the polarized sort of media and social media. And so nobody's got time to sort of work out the wrinkles. But the AI has time to work out the wrinkles. And so AI can help people communicate radically more efficiently and bring them together. And therefore, AI is the thing that could possibly help save our democracy and other democracies and create more stability in currently a very, seems like an unstable world.
For sure, for sure. And Dmitry, I appreciate your perspectives. Obviously, we know where we're at today with the technology, but you went through some of the examples where you see it evolving. And I think that's promising in a lot of ways. It's exciting for technologists like you and I, but we need to obviously proceed with caution and hopefully AI will come with some solutions, especially in this very fractured world we live in today. Do appreciate it. And Dmitry, it's been such a pleasure having you on today. And I look forward to speaking with you real soon.
Thanks for having me.
Bye for now.